Hello, Nicole. Just you and me so far.
That's weird. When I clicked it, it said four people are already in here. That's so strange.
Huh, interesting. Well, there were four people who RSVP'd in the community,
Oh, okay.
but they haven't all shown up yet. So,
I got exactly what to say, and thank you so much. That
cool.
I have not seen a book formatted like that before. That's very interesting.
You
That's
enjoying
definitely
it
sort of
then?
the what?
Are you enjoying it?
Yeah. I think that's exactly the definition of what was that great quote? Uh, I would have written you something shorter, but I didn't have the time. Like
Yeah,
the way that they just pull out these really impactful statements, and that's like a whole page.
yeah,
But you have to come up with those really impactful statements.
yeah. I
But
think the
in
author
the
spent some time crafting that book.
oh yeah, yeah, the different fonts. I've been trying to think about what kind of illustrations I want. Um, and it's interesting. I had not thought about just playing with typography as a way of drawing attention to something. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, great. So, how are things coming along with your book?
So it's easier for me to write the stuff that's not in the book.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, it's going okay. I'm really here mostly right now. I have to say something that's been really impactful as well is see two people hold their books up. I put some fire under you, backside.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to hear about sort of where their journey is taking them now, just so I can see sort of down the line what's next. Um, but yeah, I read a kind of something. I haven't even finished the article because it kind of bummed me out, but I think it was the Scrum Alliance sent something out about how a lot of people are being laid off in Agile and Scrum, and I was like, oh, now is not the time for me to know that. But again, I think that's kind of what one of the reasons why I'm writing the book is I think that a lot of people, a lot of companies, not people, companies made up of people have done sort of a half-assed version of Scrum or Agile. And so people coming into those organizations, they don't go and buy books or take classes on what Scrum or Agile means. Whatever their company tells them Scrum or Agile means is what it is, which probably makes people think that it's not very effective because they see a lot of different variations that aren't really taking the true spirit of what was meant to be there um, into account.
Yeah. Very true. I mean, I think about my own company when I read the Scrum book by Sutherland and then gave it to everybody. I mean, I kind of forced everybody to read it. I'm not sure how many of them actually read it. I know some people read it, but when something's pushed down from above, you have to wonder how much it really gets internalized or how much people really buy into it.
Well, with that book that I shared you, that's one of my hero books. I would give it to people, but we would just meet in a conference room for like 3 hours, pull up Jira on a laptop, go through exactly kind of what the expectations are week by week. And kind of, and I'd say, oh yeah, look on this page here. So that hopefully that, they would keep that as a reference at least.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way you have to do it, I think, with some of this stuff, at least to know that people know what you want them to know, you have to be there while they absorb it, and you have to be able to ask them questions to verify that they really get it. And I just handed everybody the book and said, go read this. But
Good afternoon, Catherine.
hello,
Oh,
Catherine, you're on mute.
you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yes, good morning and then good afternoon to Josh and Nicole.
Good afternoon to you, and hope you're set up for a great weekend.
Oh,
I'm
I
ready
am.
for the weekend, that's for sure.
I am. Thank you. Hope you are as well. I don't know what your weekend looks like down there, but
Well, it's
Good. How's the
pretty.
weather, Josh?
Oh, it's nice and sunny. It's 75 and sunny today.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, this is great weather. This is the Arizona weather that I love.
Hmm.
yes. And up north in Canada, we are jealous. Just saying, because we're heading into the winter, which is long and cold.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Josh, I
Catherine,
don't
how
have
are
any,
things going for you?
they're going well. I don't have any questions because for me, as I indicated in the Mighty Network, Sarah, thank you for your prompts. I really appreciate the resources you put. The videos are very inspiring. And for me right now, I'm very focused on just developing the habit. And as I put in there, I'm writing 750 words a day. So far, I'm sticking to it, but I'm not worried about organizing it and getting my message exact and having supporting points. I'm just writing. And the most interesting thing has happened. It's really helped me understand my thinking. It's clarified a few things for me. I've ended up making a really big decision that I have been churning around for months. And it was just like all of a sudden it just became very clear. And I thought, this is really interesting. I don't know if there's any studies or what you're thinking about just the writing, I don't know if it does anything to your brain or maybe it just sort of clarifies things. I've heard, what is it, the Ship 30 do it. Justin Welsh has talked about it. You probably have done the same, but I thought it really does something when you actually physically write and don't just live in your head with all this thinking. What am I going to write? Will I do it? Can I write a book? I don't know. Procrastinate. And then when you did Mighty Networks, I thought, you know what, this is my chance. I'm going to get back at it and figure this way forward. And I thought, I live in my head. I try to figure everything out. But this writing without having to figure, just write, it has really done something for me, which I don't know if other people have ever told you that or you heard these things before. But so for me, for the next couple of weeks, that's it. Writing 750 words and something clear is coming out of it. But it looks very messy right now.
I
That's
agree.
great to
Writing has
hear.
made me understand what I believed. That
Yeah.
makes any sense.
Yeah, I found out over the past 2 or 3 decades that I think by writing. When I hate phone calls. When I get on a phone call with my business partners, I'll tell them, I don't know what I think about this. I need to go write an email so I know what I think about it. Because that's literally how I work stuff out and how I think about things. And we all think in different ways. Some people think by talking, some people think by just sitting there and thinking, some people think by writing. I mean, we all do all three of those things, but to one extent or another, for me, definitely, if I really need to think about something, I need to write it out to work through it.
If you would have told me that a couple of weeks or a month ago, I would have thought, that sounds kind of weird, but okay, if that fits, fine. Now that I've done it, I understand what that means. I have seen this work and it's like, wow, this has been quite remarkable. And I'm using it now even for my work because I've been doing some leadership trainings sessions on some of the topics that I've been interested in and talked about last week. And then writing it, it was just like, wow, it's impacted my work, my interaction with my facilitation. And now seeing a path forward to writing this book, it's still pretty clear as mud, still looks like vomit, but there's an excitement. It's like writing has clarified my thinking. And maybe what it's done is it's made me aware of my thinking that I didn't understand before.
Well, one of my one-on-one coaching clients, Rob Finley, he just came out with this book a few months ago. And one of the interesting pieces of feedback I got from him, so he's in commercial real estate. So he owns commercial real estate, but he also creates software and tools and businesses that serve other operators in commercial real estate. And when he started the book, he said, I want this book because nobody knows who I am. And I want people to know who I am without me having to tell them who I am. I want them to get the book. And then when I go in to sell my company's software, I want them to know, oh, this is Rob Finley. He's that guy who wrote that book, rather than me having to tell them this is who I am. So that was his initial motivation. However, when we got done with the book, he said, I had no idea how much this book would change my business. He said, I thought I was just going to write something about what I already knew. But he said, as I wrote, I thought through everything. And he said, I ended up completely changing the way I run my business and what my business does because of the process of writing this book. So I think that's similar to what we're talking about here, that the act of writing helps us figure out what we believe or what we don't believe, what we think, how we think, helps us work things out. It really is a way of thinking and a way of working things out just to go through that exercise.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow. That's quite interesting. That's an interesting CA actuary book, but yeah, I can totally identify with that now. I get that. And it's interesting when you were saying he wrote the book so people would know who he is. And I thought, I'm guessing the punchline is going to be when he wrote the book, he figured out who he was. And that's sort of
Bingo. There you go.
a part of it. Yeah.
Well
And Nicole,
put.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of this conversation. So I would be interested in what you're writing or what your goals are for writing or where your perspective is.
Oh, sure. I actually joined the class a really long time ago, during the depths of the pandemic, when Josh first introduced it, and was trying to find something to do because I was having a hard time getting engagements as a project management consultant during that time. A lot of the employers around me are in hospitality, and they were laying off a lot of very wonderful, qualified people who I was now also competing against for what few jobs people had not shelved. I also specialized in new and emerging technologies. That was the first thing to go in terms of projects. Any cool new try stuff out stuff was not on the table until we could figure out what was going on during COVID. The idea I had during COVID for that book ended up not being something that makes a lot of sense after COVID, or at least it's not interesting to me anymore. I'm not sure how interesting it is to other people. It was more about how to manage people remotely and how people were doing it. So I was doing a lot of interviews with people, kind of taking a page from Josh's, marketing officers at work book. I wasn't sure if I was going to do it that way. I was just talking to people to figure out, how people are doing things. And I was not really getting anything very interesting or novel that I felt was going anywhere with that. So I kind of disbanded that. And then when Josh kind of brought the class back, I at first couldn't join, but he changed the day. So now I can, because it's a day that I work from home. And I am now going to write a book about agile project management, which is my area of expertise, and something that has changed since when I first learned about agile and first started working with agile, is it was sort of a fringe thing that most companies didn't even look at it. They had their own waterfall process or their own sort of very, very old sort of process of how to manage a project. And Agile was sort of disruptive and simple and easy. Gave a lot of power to the people actually doing the work. Kind of scary, I think, for a lot of companies. Just sort of a buzzword where, when I would take on an engagement, people would interview the heck out of me about Agile and then engage me and not let me do any of that. Now we live in a different time where Agile's been around a while and it's been somewhat adopted, but not very well, I think, by a lot of companies, where some of the things that make that a very effective framework have been sort of cut off at the knees. And there's also a lot of books about what Agile is. And the actual rules of the game are pretty simple. And I want to make a book that just takes people back to like, this is it. This is the simple framework that it's about. And then you make changes to that or additions to that if they add business value. That's it. I just want to have a short book to teach people, like, here's the least you need to know. So I think there's a lot of use cases for it. Executives who want to know within, I think Josh, you were talking about short books, a plane ride. You can read it on the plane. It's easy. It's inviting. Big text, lots of white space, illustrations, and something you just keep at your desk for reference.
That sounds
I'm
really
excited
good.
to see it come out.
Yes, and having worked with a lot of executives and directors, time is so of essence. So simplicity is a great word. It's a really good word. Like, just keep it simple, have it really the core essentials. People will appreciate that rather than
Yeah, it's
trying to.
completely different from what I thought I wanted to do back in the pandemic. I wanted to write a big, thick, tiny type book that looked very important. I don't think that's how you get through to people these days.
There's
We
a
look at
lot to be
me.
said for short books.
Yes.
And if you think about it, any book that you've read, how much of that book do you actually remember? You might remember one or two things out of it that you quote and that you think about. And that's really what you take away from the book. So why include all this detail when you can create a short book and then people read it more than once, they'll remember more of it. You might actually get more of your message across to people with a shorter book than you would with a bigger book.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And again, I think the landscape right now is confusing for people who do want to know Agile, but don't want to invest $1,000 in a class. Because there's so many books, which one do you pick? Even the For Dummies, which I ordered, I haven't looked at it. And it's 3 years out of date. It's a big book, it's a long book. It's really a handful of simple rules
Yeah.
and processes, and that's it. If you can do those, you can probably manage your project very well.
There's a lot of power in the short book.
Yes, there is.
There's a lot of power in the short book because it becomes the starting place. It becomes the book that people say, hey, to get started, to get the introduction, read this first.
Yeah.
And that's a great place to be the first book that people refer.
Oh, yes. And it
Recommend.
certainly is a unique value you're adding. If you want to be just different than all the books out there. How many reviews have I not read lately about books that I'm interested in buying or something? And I'll read the reviews. A lot of times the comment is, this could have been reduced to a white paper. This could have been reduced to, whatever. But sometimes I almost feel like it's an author not bragging, but feel like they have to show that they're super knowledgeable and they're putting everything in it and you're giving everything instead of reducing it to the essential. And then people are going to say, wow, that's the value right there, the core issues, and I can use it. So
But
I think that's a great idea, Nicole.
I think that's something that we can now relate to, right? Because I think that's part of the imposter syndrome thing. That's definitely like it's taken a while for me to realize that I can actually really even do this. And I definitely was very skeptical when I first took the class, and I wasn't even sure really what I was doing. The idea of writing a book was very, and I'd come up with sort of ideas, and I think, yeah, I'll have to flesh this out and make this idea 20 pages or something like that, because that's sort of what we think authors should do.
It's easy to look at other books. I mean, you go look at a shelf, the average business book's going to be about 200 pages. And so we get sucked into thinking, well, that's what everybody else is doing. That's what I've got to do. But again, we need to do what's right for our audience and what our audience is going to get value of. And if they want a longer book. And if it needs to be shorter, shorter. But we shouldn't, that's one area where we should diverge from the standard and say, do I really need 200 pages? Do I need more? Do I need less? It really just depends on what the audience is going for. I mean, I've read business books that are 400 pages and I love it. It's great because there's a reason to have that much content. But like exactly what to say, that book, it's a couple of pages and it does its job beautifully.
But initially my thought was like, in order to be taken seriously as one of these, people who has written a 200-page book, I also need to write a 200-page book. And if I've only got, 15 pages to say about something, I'm just going to have to keep thinking through it to come up with more pages about it, I've let that go now.
That's good. So, Catherine, what questions can we answer for you? How can we help you along?
Well, I don't want to waste your time, Josh, so I thought I shouldn't get on the call, but I'm going to get on the call because it inspires me and it keeps me going. So like I said, the biggest thing is I just come in with gratitude today. I just appreciate you giving this platform and giving it's been so beneficial for me. But I don't have a lot of questions, Josh, other than I just wanted to say the discipline, creating a writing habit was exactly where I needed to start. Well, I have been in my head thinking, what is my message? What is it that people really want? I've had so many interviews and I ask people and people say, when are you going to write your book? And it's like, oh, I got to have it all figured out. And I've just taken a different approach and it's actually working for me, which is very weird because I like to have it all planned. I need a roadmap. I need to know all the lights are green and then I will leave my house. So I can't do that anymore. So
So what has been the
maybe
most?
My question for you, Josh, would be, okay, so this is my starting point and I'm being disciplined and it's working. I'm actually starting to look forward to my 750 words. It's freed me up. But now I can't just stay there. I need to actually come out of this. So what would be my next step? What would you recommend?
Well, I'm curious. Tell me a little bit more about your writing habit. What has been the hardest part of getting that writing habit in place? And what has been the most helpful to break through and actually turn it into a habit?
this is just very personal for me. It's letting aside my perfectionism and my sense of my fear, maybe of just feeling like maybe when it's all done, it's not going to be good enough. Like maybe people wouldn't want my writing. Maybe I can't do it. So as long as I don't do it, I never have to prove that I can. I just always have it in the future. I don't know that making sense. But when I let that go, and I just thought, and I heard some of you say it last week. I forget, there was a woman on the call, and when you were talking about vomit draft, and I thought, that sounds horrible. Like that is so not the way I work. I don't do that. It's got to be really good. And then I'll start to shape it and get all my notes. And I thought, why don't I do that? Why do I have to feel like I've got to have this all figured out? So that was probably my biggest breakthrough. I just could let that go. I don't have to be perfect. I know all those things in my head. Everyone knows these things. But to actually just do it and say, I gave myself permission to say, just write, have a writing prompt, and then write. And that actually changed it for me. And once I started doing it without feeling like I have to have my, my main points and my introductory paragraph and my 3 supporting points and all of my, all of the reference material and the credentials, it was just like, just write. And I cannot stop writing. There's so much inside. I thought 750 words, that is not enough. I got to keep doing more. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was probably me just shifting out of my fear, shifting my mindset and saying, hey, try something different. Just give it a try. What have you got to lose? Do it for 1 week. That's what I did.
What, Catherine, what is your sort of writing ritual? What is your sort of schedule?
The ritual I started this week, because it literally is this week, as up until now, like, well, when I work, I'm a professional, I'm an executive coach, and I come from a corporate background where I was a director. So I would do a lot of reports and I would write different things, but write articles, but it would be very time consuming and I'd have to get it all right. So right now what I'm trying to do is just, and then I'm an executive coach, so I do a lot of training for companies and leadership development. So I don't know exactly what you're
asking. Do you write first
asking
thing
me.
in the morning? Do you write?
Oh, that, no, you know what? I gotta say, that hasn't disciplined yet because I have different things on the go. So it's like, yeah, just work it in when I can. And I'm down to 17 minutes for 800 words and it just keeps coming. So I just look forward to it. So that there's no morning routine. It's just doing it.
It's great. The dam has opened, huh?
Yeah, but it's not there. Like the water is quite muddy, as you can imagine, but yet there's threads coming out, and yeah, it's okay. But that was my big breakthrough, was just to say, don't try to figure this out, just write.
That's great. Perfect.
I think Catherine and I both came here to be passengers today.
Yeah, I'm just a passenger and just want to say thanks.
I just wanted to hear about what where other people are in their journey and the advice you had for them.
Well, we're here for all the reasons. Sometimes it's people need to learn. Sometimes people need to vent. Sometimes people need therapy. We're here for all those reasons.
So Josh, you never did say what's next. So I can't just stay here and just write a flow stream of information. What would you say next?
The next step is organizing it into an outline. But I would say keep up with that flow for a while. Maybe you have that flow for another month or 2 or something. And because you can, just by dumping all that information out, you can get up to 200 pages of content right there. Then you look at that and you say, okay, I think I've got everything out that I want to say, or most of it, or 90% of it. And then we start organizing and saying, what order do I want to present this in? What's the logical order that somebody would learn this material? And then that becomes our outline. And a lot of people think about the book writing process as, I have an idea, then I create an outline, then I fill in the outline. I like to do this other process where you have the idea, you dump out everything you can think with no order or rhyme or reason or structure, and then you go back and you organize it, and then you're almost done with your book at that point. And that way, the outline comes together naturally. We're not trying to force it, because what happens is if you create an outline and then you go to fill in the outline, as you fill it in, you say, oh, wait a second, section 2 should be section 4, section 6 should be section 2. And then you're rewriting stuff. But if you just dump it all out, I find that it becomes pretty easy to organize into the proper order, because you already have all that information out. You're not creating it after the outline. The outline comes after most of the information is out.
That makes a ton of sense because I'm actually was in the first camp and that was very restrictive. I was very blocked when I was in that first one because I had to figure out the outline. This way, it's not the way. It's working. It is absolutely working. And Nicole, back to your question, if that's what you were asking, I don't have a time of day, but what I have joined is the 750words.com, and they just give me a prompt every day. And it's probably a little bit of gamification ads. When I hit 750 words, I get all the stars and the whistles, and I don't mean anything, but it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this for 30 days, and I'm not going to break it. And even if it means right 11:30 at night, I'm going to do it. So that has worked for me. I'm sure it doesn't work for everybody, but it has worked for me.
Oh, that's cool.
750words.com.
Yep. And so far it's been free, but I can see next month they're going to start charging $5 a month. But I thought, oh, that's money well paid if it gets me on my journey. So.
That's great.
I'll check that out.
So I'm going to jump off since I don't want to just take up your time, but it's been wonderful to hear your story, Nicole. And Josh, thanks again. It's actually made a big difference for me.
Well, thanks. This is great feedback, Catherine. Whenever I get feedback from people, that helps me to teach the next generation of writers. And so getting more of this feedback from you helps me know how to help others.
Great. And I just wanted to, and on a separate note, there was a gentleman that I really appreciate you putting people's books on the Mighty Networks, people that you've worked with, and say, hey, here's published, give them a good review or whatever. So I didn't want to just give a like. I'm actually ordering these books and I'm going to read them so I can give a thoughtful review. But
That's
I
great.
appreciate that. That way we can, you're sending us that information. Otherwise I wouldn't know where to look, or I wouldn't know who has been in your club before. So that's a valuable thing. So thanks for doing that.
Great. I'm glad you're enjoying that, because we want to support everybody. And when you finish your book, we want everybody doing this for you.
Yeah, it sounds a bit selfish, but I would be happy to do that anyway, because I know it is a tough slog. And I'm not an engineer, the intentional engineer, that was it. And I thought when I was reading some of the outline, I thought, that could fit for a lot of us. So I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah, it is a great book. I've gotten a lot of insight into it as he's been writing it, and it's a great book.
All right. Well, enjoy your weekend and enjoy that lovely warm weather. And Nicole, I don't know where you're stationed, but have a good week.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Catherine. Nicole,
well, Josh,
anything else that you want to talk about, or?
That's all I got too. I just do want to say that even though I don't have a lot of questions today, just the practice of joining at lunchtime once a week keeps me on track. Really appreciate it.
Great. All right. Well, have a great weekend and keep working, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Nicole. Bye-bye.